Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines here in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and Jackie's here from Copenhagen, Denmark.
And I'll start off saying Happy Thanksgiving now. This will probably get, put out a little bit later. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and we're having a special. No. Um, and I know Jackie was really excited because Thanksgiving for him over in Denmark is huge.
Yeah, it's enormous. Yeah, I actually had to look up if it was Thanksgiving yesterday. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I think I was like 22, and I had met this girl from France, and we were talking, and I said something about Thanksgiving. She's like, "What?" And it totally threw me because I'm like, "How can you not know what Thanksgiving?" And then like when I'm saying it, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I never thought about it, but it's really an American thing. We're so American focused here in the States; it's ridiculous." Anyway, and as we announced, I think it was in the webinar last 2 weeks ago, roughly, that there's a mentor site that I created for AutoHotkey. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the pros. I don't know if I'd even say there's any cons, right? But the pros of having a mentor and how helpful it is. And in the webinar, I gave a little background of how Jackie and I got started. And Jackie was my first real, unofficial mentor in AutoHotkey because I was working in corporate America. I actually took a job on that I was way underqualified for. I still could figure it out though, right? So, but I had to do no one actually told me what I had to do. They wanted to automate a process because it was just a bear and people would quit after, 6 to 9 months. They'd quit and they'd have to train someone else. So I got hired to automate this process. And so I said, I can figure it, whatever out. So I came in and I started looking at web scraping, which I had never done, and object-oriented coding, and then doing stuff with SQL, with AutoHotkey. And anyway, it was a lot of stuff. But I hadn't done any object-oriented stuff. I had never done web scraping, and the little bit I had done was, at the time, I would go to a page and get all of the HTML, and then do regular expressions to identify the little areas of the text that I wanted, and it was quite a complex and ridiculous process. And so I was finally got to where I was posting questions to the forum. And I happened to notice that this guy, was it Black Holy Man or Holy Black Man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Jackie. I think I've mentioned this once before, but I'm like, I had this total vision, because this is way before we ever spoke, of you as this, because I think it said you were in Denmark maybe or somewhere in Europe, but I had this vision of some monkish guy, some black guy, and it's a monk that's helping people. It was quite humorous now, but I realized over and over he kept answering my questions. I would post a question about how do I do this and how do I do this, and you happened to be the one that was answering these questions, and it turns out I know that was a focus for you at the time too, of just helping people, and you were learning more in AutoHotkey because you were using that to make sure you learn stuff, which I think kind of feeds into the whole mentorship thing as well, right?
Exactly.
But but part of it was also you did a lot of stuff in not necessarily web scraping, but web page stuff, and so we we were aligned to some degree in what we were doing, and so that's how it fit well. And then I happened to notice you had a website, and then I reached out to, anyway, long story somewhat short, I ended up reaching out to you, and we started working a little bit together, having somewhat regular calls, I guess is what we do. And then I would get stuck on something, and it was it was such a game changer when I would get stuck on something, and instead of looking, I'd post it to the forum, and someone, which is amazing, would, they help you. But it's, it also would take days, because you post something and then they're not there right then, and they would come back later, and then they might write a reply, but then they didn't mention something, and you have to come back the next day and write something. It's a really tedious process. And when we actually started using Zoom and sharing our screen and live doing stuff, it was such a game changer that that's what, first off is find someone that you can actually have, a relationship with and ask questions to. But when you can share your screens and go through that while either you're developing code or they're developing code, be able to stop and ask questions. Like, wait a minute, what was that? You learn in leaps and bounds, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, it can really mean a lot. It sure can. At one point, I was looking a lot at doing or try to do help on the online chats. At one it was IRC or whatever, and
Right.
then Discord, and both of them are fine, but um, my writing speed ain't that high, especially not in English. It's probably okay, but it's nowhere near what a pretty good native English speaking person can do. And I actually ended up feeling like I never got to answer any questions on there because others were just faster at actually typing out the answer. And when comparing those things, the slowness of the forum can be really nice when you want a thorough answer. And the speed of the on chats can be nice if you just want some quick, dirty help. But none of them really fits that mentoring image, because one is too distant and the other one might be too fast paced. Pace. Yeah.
And it's one of those also that when you don't have that relationship, you have to hope someone is available at that point in time. And of course, also people code differently, and so if you're switching between people, let's say you come in one day and you help me with something, and then I get stuck, and the next day I come back and someone else is trying to help me. They might completely want to rewrite what the first person did or take a different approach, right? And that's where, yeah. But that's where I'd throw in there. Discord to me is closer, possibly, but again, it's that the timing as well, right? And having that working with the same person over time. So from the mentee side of things, where I want to get a mentor, it's probably not a very hard argument. Most people would agree it is helpful. I want to make sure people really understand just how leaps and bounds it is, right? But at the same time, I know from talking to you after the webinar, we chit-chatted a bit about it, and we didn't mention in the webinar of like, look, the mentors actually, benefit as well, right? Yeah. The first one, of course, is just you're helping people, right? Which is it's one thing. By helping other people, you actually give your soul meaning, for lack of a better way to say it, right? You feel really good, right, when you're helping people, for multiple reasons. One is just, you feel like you did something good, but the second one is we've all been there, right? That's the thing. This is why, you and I have also never had a problem. Is like, I know I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'm also ahead of other people, but it's all just different stages on where we are, right? And I just haven't tried to apply myself, so I don't feel stupid asking questions, because we've all been there, right? And it's one of those things.
Yeah, and you can really matter for that specific person, and I've seen a lot of times when helping people that they would often sign out with something like, I'll also try and give back when I become better. And sure enough, it people might not always stay around long enough. But if you have something like this, just like having, I don't know, a running partner or whatever it might be.
Oh, good point. Right.
You actually have something that.
Yeah. A workout buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I hadn't thought of it that way, but I know I've mentioned multiple times my friend Gabe Cook that we would not every year, but most years we would have a codecation where we would get together, we'd take breaks, get together physically and spend 12 hours a day or even more coding and learning. And actually, so those are the once a year kind of things. But even now we have weekly calls. And we plan to give it, like what we'll do is we'll both be reading the same book, and then we discuss what we learn, right? And to your point, like that we do that because, which is something I don't think you mentioned yet also, is especially if you're the mentor, right? You want to make sure you really know your stuff if you're going to teach someone something. And so it helps you, in that sense of level up even more, because whenever you're teaching someone something, you have to fully understand it, right, in order to do that. And so often, and the other one is, and I know from talking to you, this was one of the reasons why you were doing that helping on the forum side, is it helps round you out because you learned what you wanted to do because you had needs. But someone else has other types of needs, right? And so you might actually find other things working on the same topic that you hadn't thought of because, you did what you wanted to know and this and that, but someone else might have a different approach or different things that they wanted to do. And so suddenly you're like, oh, I never actually did do that. And then the mentor learns.
Yeah. And when you try to help people, it can be kind of frustrating not knowing enough about their issue. And you can actually use quite a bit of mental power on trying to figure out what it is that they're doing. If you actually have a straight up connection or communication or line of communication where you can really talk that out, that can also help quite a bit, both with them getting your problem solved, but us with you maybe feeling less frustrated.
Yeah, and I think this is where you were going with that as well. We know, because I run into it all the time. People will write me and say, hey, I'm trying to web scrape on this page. Can you help me? And I'm like, well, can you give me the URL? Well, no, it's a private URL and it's not something I can give out publicly. And they're like, then I really can't help you. I mean, like it's really hard. But when you have the one-to-one relationship, usually most people, unless you're doing stuff for the CIA, right? You're like, hey, you know what? I can share my screen, and you can watch me do it. And when we have this relationship, it's okay that someone happens to look at what I'm doing. It's very different than posting it on the internet and anyone and everyone, can see all the stuff. So that's another, it makes it so much easier because, yeah, hey, I can share it with one person. I'm not going to get in trouble, and it's really good. But otherwise, how do you do that kind of stuff, right? It's really tricky.
Yeah, exactly. And you might not need to give them access to or control over your computer or anything like that, but just the fact that you can show it in a video.
Right.
Sure enough, people can also use video for whatever, but generally not sending people plain text files with code or access to hidden websites or whatever it might be.
Yep.
A video can help quite a lot. And if it's live call, the mentee or the mentor can ask whatever
interactive. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is like it's so different because usually you think, well, they want this. And here's the thing, even when, like, let's say you and I were doing a topic and you had said, Joe, I need you to go this and do this, X, Y, and Z, right? Which I go and start recording a video to do. Now, if we were live doing something and we do X and then you would have done Y, but you realized after we did X, holy cow, look at this here. I should look, we need to look at that. And that's the stuff, unless you're live doing stuff together, you miss entirely, right? And that's why that one-to-one relationship where you can share screens and work through stuff, and it's fun too, right? You build a lot of camaraderie. It's just so many benefits to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's something that can maybe not on a grand scale make the community larger, but it can probably make it stronger.
Yeah.
Right. There people will probably make stronger connections if they've actually had a mentor or someone they know more than just an avatar on a forum.
Jackie, that's an excellent point. And I'm going to take it a step further because I was watching something from Dan Kennedy, but he was talking about how typically, for businesses and even churches and stuff, they have events once a week for a reason, because you need that relationship and it keeps people, excited. You and I have talked about how in the AutoHotkey community, people come and go quite frequently, right? They'll use it for a bit or maybe even a year or so, then they kind of fade away. But in the church thing, when you're doing it frequently, like, people are much more likely to stay with something when they're doing it that regular. But the one where I was going with this, that what you said made me think about it, was when what they try to do is to get you, let's say it's you, Jackie, I want you to bring 2 or 3 people to this thing, right? When you're the one that recruit people, it's really hard for you to leave, right? Because you brought in other people and you're teaching them, and now you're really tied, because, you're if you leave, you're like, well, I led people here, now I'm out of here. Good luck, So it really could be a great way to help the AutoHotkey community overall, right? Keep people longer, keep them vested, and it's a good thing, right? It's not that it's a bad thing. You're not tricking them, you're not making them, shaming them. It's that it's one of those, people do stuff that they get reward from, and you're right. When it's just an avatar, especially not even the person's picture or real name, how tied are you to that, right? So that's interesting.
I'd say I've often might be the wrong way of saying it, but it seems like many of the people that I actually have talked to in the community don't know any other real life people who are using AutoHotkey.
Right.
They know names of people on the forums, and after the more live chats, people on there might feel like they know each other, and they might even have had voice chats and stuff like that. But I do believe that the idea of seeing people as well, and maybe having an actual conversation with them, will extend that feeling of knowing people. And I think that's something that we can really use, because we might not be large enough to actually have live events and stuff, but
someday.
But currently, virtual ways of learning each other, about each other, might be a good way of actually strengthening that.
No, I agree. And I've run into that a lot, is because I've done a lot of those expert interviews of AutoHotkey people, right? I've just talked to a lot of people. So I totally agree, because people will reach out to me and I'm like, well, I know you've talked to them before, why don't you reach out to them? But they haven't directly talked to that person, and for whatever reason, they don't have that relationship. But I've been made it a point to try to have that, learn from, meet people, learn and talk to them. And it's great, because I don't know. I mean, I can't explain it. I feel very connected to a lot of people about AutoHotkey and stuff. So now, in the webinar we mentioned, I'm going to put the link up here, hopefully. There we go. So I created a website to try to connect people, to help people connect. And so I'm the only one, well, my employee can see it too, Isaiah's. We can log in, but you can go there and join and either become a mentor. And actually, with the way I thought about it was, we're all at different stages, right? And so for some topics, like for me in particular, I could probably say I could be a mentor on things like maybe controls, maybe regex, web scraping, I know pretty well. Hotkeys, hot strings, right? Those are the top of the things of like, hey, I could easily be a mentor for those things. But I want to learn, GUIs and DLL calls, and send and post message, even though I've used them. So I'm not to where I can be a mentor on them, but I want to, learn them. So when you sign up, you list first, what are the topics? I think first is what you want to learn, and the second list of things are what you know, what you could be a mentor for. And so this way, you're covering both bases, and over time you can come back in and change those settings. Right? That was why I actually had to get someone to build this for me, because if it was just a form, a one-time static thing, it'd be really easy to do, but we all change, right? And hopefully over time, after someone teaches me, before I wasn't for web scraping and now I could be, I want to take it off of the want to learn and put it on that I can be a mentor on.
Yeah. It really sounds like a great way to figure out who might be a good help or fit for you when trying to learn or teach. So
Yeah. And it's all right now because I spent a fair amount of money creating the site, sadly, but it's still manual. I mean, of course, I'm going to write something where I can do some web scraping to extract the data, because it's ridiculous. It's all saved in the profile of the person, so there's no API. There's no. I'm like, oh mercy, but I can load the page and then extract it all. So, but I'm going to have to manually connect the people. So bear with me at the beginning. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get to where I can, connect people and stuff. But I hope it's it's a good resource for the community that people sign up. I haven't gone in and counted, but I think I had at least 20 people so far sign up. And I haven't been promoting it. That's actually why I was hoping to get this podcast in, because I just haven't really announced it, and I wanted to have a leap board. Is that the right word? I don't know.
Maybe. I'd say one of the things that I was just thinking about is that if I actually was trying to learn and I might not have an actual issue that I needed help with, and that's maybe where I would say the forum is kind of hard to use. If you don't have an actual issue.
Oh, right.
And you just want to learn more about a thing, and listening to a podcast or viewing videos on the topic might be okay, but actually having a dynamic call with someone where you discuss that specific topic might work quite well. And the mentorship site here might be a good way to figure out who is available in the community to teach, or who want to talk about that specific topic as a mentor or mentee. So
Jackie, I hadn't thought about it, but one other use we can use as people fill this out, in the list of things that people want to learn. Maybe I'll dump it all into a database, and when we get a list and there's a lot of people that want to do, let's say, web scraping or regular expressions or whatever it is, hey, maybe we'll do a webinar, right? Well, that's a good reason for us to say, hey, we can do a webinar or even a podcast, depending on how broad it is and how interactive. But the webinar would be great, because then we could even invite those people. We're going to cover this topic at this time, but of course they can watch it later too if the timing doesn't work. But it's a good way to...
can at least be notified about it.
Yeah. Which actually means I'll try to also, as I go through, I'll just do good about tagging my stuff that I'm aware of. But, because my vision was, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I'm going to try to connect you with a mentor on this. But by the way, for web scraping, I have 30 videos, and we did 2 webinars, if I remember right, on it. And so meanwhile, you can start learning learn it here, but, Bob is amazing at it, and I'll connect you, to him. I will be looking at it, not just from saying, here's your mentor, goodbye, right? I'm going to try to help some, when I know of stuff, but that means I have to go through for virtually everything I have and really categorize it to where I can start doing it. But I don't mind, it's a one-time thing, and it'll be a good exercise for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. Well, thanks for jumping in, Jackie. Again, whether you think you know everything or nothing, I think it'd be a great thing to sign up. And the one thing I didn't mention was, in the form, we ask a couple other questions like time of day that you'd be available, your time zone. Sorry, couldn't think of that. And then if if you're willing to pay your mentor, and then from the mentor side, if you're going to require to get paid, I highly encourage you to do something, right? I mean, paying is nice and doesn't have to be a lot of money, but you can pay something, or just say, big thank yous. And I've told Jackie over and over how many times, like he's helping me has helped me so much, right? And just hearing that, I know when I get emails from people and they tell me, like, I've been watching your videos and this really helped me, save so much time, it's so rewarding, right? It's like, they're like, can I send you money? I'm like, I don't even want your money. When like I get those emails, it's so rewarding that like the money, that's not why I'm doing it. Right. It's
Yeah. And as I've told you before, a lot of the time I'm learning myself. So it's nice and it's a good psychological feeling to be helping someone. But as long as I'm getting something out of it by actually learning the stuff, or just training it or whatever it might be, I don't need anything more than that. But I would totally say that, at times it can make sense to give someone a beer or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks again for joining. And thanks again for all the help over the years. Between you and Maestrieth and Raptor X2 and Jean Lalonde. I mean, I've had some great people and Tank. I feel like I'm doing a thank you list for Thanksgiving or something, but I have a list of people that I'm like, I go to for help when I get stuck on something. And then I know, each of my mentors, because I have them for different things, right? And I'll go to them, and it's hard to describe like how much time it saves, and of course because even like for let's say with Maestrieth with doing stuff, like he doesn't really work much in Excel, so he'll reach out to me for help, not because I'm a better programmer, just because I probably have examples and I have done some stuff, right? So it's just we all work in different places, and so it's great having a way that you can talk to somebody. The other one is, and Jackie's done this plenty of times, he just usually often points me in the right direction, right? Like, I saw this on the forum. You can go look at here, right? And I can Google stuff, but sometimes you don't know what to search for. And so, it's having a couple people that can point you in the right direction. It's really helpful.
Yeah, and I simply loved when you mentioned all of these names. You're actually having a straight up idea of who they were, how they looked, how they, I would say, I feel. That's probably wrong, but I think you get the idea of what I mean. So that is just nice to actually have that extra layer to the people.
Well, and actually, because I know I've talked to you about this quite a few times. You're one of those people who, like, I think you've met like one or two people in person that has used actually program AutoHotkey, but not. I mean, I know you don't see them on a daily basis or something, right? But it's
it's something like that, and none of them at any real type of level, right? It's like, sure enough, they dribbled in it, they done some hotkeys or something like that, but some text replacements, but no, not anybody that I could really bounce any type of advanced knowledge off of. So yeah.
The other thing I'll throw in there though is, and I've noticed it with you and I as well. We've developed a really good friendship, and I think part of it's our interest in AutoHotkey, but it's not really AutoHotkey. It's kind of like more of our approach to life. We're very similar in how we go about trying to solve things and to do things, right? And you realize that, like, and that's where I've done, I don't know how many, like maybe 25 expert interviews with people that do AutoHotkey. Like, all of us had that same kind of thing of we try to solve problems. When we find a problem, no matter what it is, like if you took, if someone had a problem with their car and they got home, they would go out and like Google it and try to figure out what it is, versus the average person's not like that. Like they would probably just take it to a mechanic shop, right? And because they're like, well, whatever, I'll just take it somewhere and get it fixed. People that use AutoHotkey, they're used to solving their own problems, right? And I think the vast majority of people that actually program in AutoHotkey, not use it because anyone can get a script and run it. We have the same mindset, and that's where you realize when you're talking to these people, I watch some of the videos on these expert interviews I've done, and I'm like, we'll go like 2.5 hours, and it's some of the best. Like I'm done. I'm like, wow, like that was crazy. Like we talked so long, so intense, never a second where we were stopped talking and exciting, and it's because of that common bond, that mentality of how you go about doing things and what you've solved, and watching how other people have done stuff. And it's so fun. And so the point being, you really might make a really good, friend relationship thing as well, not just, the coding side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I still often reference our talks to colleagues and stuff like, yeah, the other day I talked with my friend, and he's actually from Texas, and I don't know if that actually makes it better or worse, but at least I actually do that, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that if I didn't feel like the stuff we were talking about actually has merit. So yeah,
It is really cool too that because of the internet and technology, we can do this for virtually nothing. Talk to other people on the planet all the time. I mean, it's crazy what you can do with technology, right? It's so fun. You can talk to people. I should try to map it at some point of the different countries where I've literally had calls with people, but I'm sure I've hit maybe not every continent, because there's like Antarctica or something, but pretty close to it.
yeah, it's nice
Yep.
to actually be able to do stuff like that. And a lot of people have learned in my company, and that, this year has actually shown them that video calls are really, really useful. You can actually get something productive done there.
Yeah.
Where a lot of them were like, I don't believe that the workplace will ever be virtual or anything like that, but they've kind of been forced to it, and you can actually get quite a lot of stuff done this way, and you can teach and you can learn. So yeah.
You know what, Jackie? So I'm going to bring up one more point that it's kind of ironic, and it might seem off topic in some ways, but I don't think it is. Both you and I don't know how to say it. We didn't like being on the webcam, right? Neither of us wanted to be on camera. And yet we didn't know this at the time, but both of us, because, the person we were talking to was across the planet, and I was probably never likely to meet them. For some reason, it was okay, and it didn't bother me, versus talking to my friend Gabe that I mentioned earlier that I, would see once a year at least. And then, I hated being on the webcam with him for whatever, I can't explain it. It was so weird. Yet with you, it didn't bother me. But I want to bring it up because be not bold, but try to get over it, because it's different. So the two things is sharing, seeing the other person, and being obviously to be able to share your screen. That's what I think, people, when they think of, I attended a webinar, and how would I ever do this? Like, how is that going to help me for work? You see a webinar, but you don't see, let's say they didn't share a video of the person talking, and you just saw the screen. Like, yeah, that's not, it'd be really tough if that's all we had. But the fact that we can even give control of our computer, remote control, people can do stuff, and that you can see them. And when you're seeing, it's so much easier to understand their inflection, if they're making a joke, if they're confused, whatever. It's just amazing the difference of when you can literally see them. And it does strengthen that bond as well, which, you had mentioned some earlier. It really does feel like, it's, it's just different.
It is. Hopefully a lot of people will try something like this.
All right, man. Well, and again, thanks for all your help over the years.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.